Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. So, if you're around 10 years old, or really just anyone who loves figuring out how complex stuff actually works, well, you're in the exact right place. Today, we're diving into a seriously fascinating devotional text. It's called The Shared Burden, Finding Peace in Christ's Yoke. And I'm just so excited to guide you through this, because this devotional takes a really old, super famous idea and shows us exactly how it can change your everyday life.
But before we even jump into the text, let me ask you something. Have you ever tried to carry something that was just way too heavy all by yourself? I mean, imagine your family just got back from the grocery store, right? And instead of taking a few light bags, you decide you're going to carry literally every single grocery bag inside all at once. So your arms are shaking, the plastic is digging into your fingers, and you can barely even walk up the steps. We've all been there, for sure. You struggle and struggle because, well, you insist on carrying all that weight totally solo. Well, today's devotional is entirely about that exact feeling. That feeling of struggling with weight and how to finally get some help.
All right, Section 1. What is a yoke? Decoding an ancient tool.
Okay, let's dive right into this by decoding a kind of tricky ancient word that shows up right there in the title of the devotional. It's a word that people back in the day used all the time, but we don't really see it much anymore. That word is yoke. So what is it? A yoke is actually a physical farming tool. It's this big, heavy wooden beam that's carved to fit right over the necks of two animals, like two massive, strong oxen or horses. By connecting the two animals together with this piece of wood, they can share a really heavy load. I mean, think about it. If one ox tried to pull a giant plow through a whole field by itself, it would get completely stuck. No way it could do it alone. But when two animals are connected by a yoke, they pull together. They combine their strength. Visualizing this physical tool is actually super important because it helps us understand exactly how sharing the weight works in real life before we get into the spiritual meaning from the text.
And that brings us straight to our anchor quote from the devotional. This comes right from the book of Matthew, chapter 11, verse 30. It says, "For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." So here, Jesus is the one speaking. He's basically offering us a spiritual version of that giant wooden farming tool. But instead of plowing a literal dirt field, he's talking about how we handle the really hard things in our lives.
Moving on to Section 2, Sharing the Heavy Load. You are not alone.
So, let's look at exactly how this spiritual tool works. Because when Jesus offers you his yoke, he's making this massive promise to you. The promise is, you are not alone. And the devotional breaks down exactly what wearing this yoke means. First, it means being a co-partner with Jesus. You just aren't doing the hard work by yourself anymore. Second, wearing this yoke keeps you right near his side. Because you're strapped into the same yoke together, you stay right next to him. And third, it means letting him pull the hardest parts. Think of it kind of like being assigned a giant group project in school. Imagine an older kid, maybe like the smartest high schooler in the world, sits down right next to you and says, "Hey, let's do this together. I'll handle all the absolute toughest math problems. You just work right alongside me." That is what the devotional says Jesus is doing.
And you know, this brilliantly illustrates the most comforting takeaway from the entire text. Jesus bears the heaviest part of the load. When you accept his yoke, yes, it's a yoke of restraint and obedience, sure, but it is of the absolute greatest help to you. You never have to carry the super heavy stuff alone again because the strongest co-partner is right there, taking the most difficult weight right off your shoulders.
Section 3. Our burdens versus his. Heavy versus light.
Now you might be wondering, if Jesus is offering to carry the heavy stuff, why do we still sometimes feel so stressed out and overwhelmed? Well, the devotional makes a direct comparison to answer that. On one side, we have our own yokes. And get this, we humans actually frame these yokes for our own necks. We literally create our own stress. We think doing things our own selfish way is going to be this precise fit, but the text says it doesn't fit us at all. In fact, our own yokes prove galling. Now, galling is a very old school word, but for us today, it basically means super annoying or deeply painful, like it just rubs your neck raw. But then look at the other side, Jesus' yoke. The text tells us his yoke is easy and it's light. It keeps us near him. And most importantly, he makes provision for it. 0. That's the number right there. The devotional makes a huge point here. God has made absolutely zero provision for the unnecessary, selfish burdens we gather up for ourselves. Like he hasn't given us any special strength to carry the stress we invent when we try to do everything our own stubborn way. That is exactly why doing things our own way feels so incredibly hard. A lot of times we think we're having a hard time bearing burdens just because of life, but really it's because we're trying to carry things God never even asked us to carry. Okay, Section 4, Walking in His Footsteps, the Daily Walk. Now, we need to be really clear about something. Wearing Jesus' yoke and letting him carry the heaviest parts doesn't mean you just get to sit around on the couch all day doing nothing. The devotional introduces another famous symbol right here, the cross. So the crucial point is how the text actually connects the yoke and the cross. It says they're symbols representing the exact same thing. They both represent giving up our own will to God. They both mean finally letting go of our own selfish, stubborn ways, what the text calls our darling desires, and instead choosing to do things God's way.
The text breaks this whole complex idea down into some really actionable instructions for following the Master. Step 1. Deny your own inclinations and selfish desires. Basically, stop trying to carry all those grocery bags at once just to prove you can. Step 2. Lift the cross. This cuts away the selfish part of your soul and teaches you how to actually bear Christ's burdens. And Step 3. Step in Christ's footsteps. You have to match his pace. When you're in a yoke with someone, you literally have to walk at the exact same speed as them. You step exactly where he steps.
So taking on this yoke is all about self-sacrifice and love. It is definitely not about lazy indulgence. The devotional makes absolutely sure we know that the life of Christ was one of self-sacrifice and self-denial at every single step. Wearing his yoke means learning to act just like him. It means acting with consistent, Christ-like tenderness and love. As you advance in this life, walking right there in his footsteps, you become more and more inspired with his spirit. So you weren't being lazy, you're just finally pulling the plow the right way with the right partner.
Which leaves us with a final, incredibly important question. I want you to really think about your own life right now. What heavy burden do you need to trade for Jesus' light yoke today? What is that super heavy grocery bag of stress or worry or maybe even stubbornness that you're trying to carry all by yourself? Just remember, his yoke is easy and his burden is light. You literally don't have to carry it alone anymore. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this helps you find a little more peace in your day.